So I hand it on to you, Brother Farooq, to please lead it forward. I think this is going to be a very interesting session on the global developments in Islamic finance, the opportunities and challenges. We have got two Secretary Generals of infrastructure bodies within the Islamic banking and finance industry. We are joined by a Sharia advisor, as well as we are joined by the president of an accounting regulator. And lastly, we are joined by our foreign delegate from Turkey, from Bursa, Istanbul. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. I'll hand over to Brother Farooq to please moderate the session from here on.
Thank you, Dr. Rizwan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A very good morning to all of you. And it's always a pleasure for me to be in Pakistan, my country of origin. But before we go ahead with the session, I would like to ask, first of all, the organizers to please close the doors to the hall. And the delegates in the room, if we can please have some silence. As Dr. Rizwan said, this session is very highly powered. We have two Secretary Generals, and we have some important members from Islamic finance community around the world. So let's give it, inshallah, its due care. So going back, as I said, I'm always pleased and honored to be back in my country of origin, Pakistan, the beloved country. And it's another great pleasure for me to be very heavily involved in doing things for Pakistan, for Islamic finance industry in Pakistan. So alhamdulillah, I have had the opportunity and the blessing to be leading some key projects related to Islamic finance. For example, for the Ministry of Finance, we did asset-light sukuk framework a couple of years ago. Recently, we have done a diagnostic report for the Aaoifi-Secp that the chairman Aaoifi-Secp kindly mentioned. This was done by IFAS under the auspice of Asian Development Bank, who kindly sponsored the project. And we also did a very unique report that's actually an Islamic fintech framework for the Aaoifi-Secp for developing the Islamic financial services in Pakistan. This is something, leveraging the technology, very important. We'll talk about this later. But without a further ado, as we are a bit late, I will ask Brother Mustafa Ansari, Umar Mustafa Ansari, to please make your presentation. For the benefit of time, I would request all the speakers to please keep your presentations limited to 8 minutes, so that we can then allow some time for question and answers from the audience, and I may have some questions for you as well. So thank you, Brother Umar.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri yafqahu qawli. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is, to be honest, a great pleasure. I don't want to, probably Brother Farooq has actually taken 2 minutes away from me, 2 or 3 minutes away from me, so I cannot express my, heartfelt feelings actually. But you all can just understand that how happy I would be today, alhamdulillah, from both ends, being in Pakistan as my home country and as Aaoifi working together with the Aaoifi-Secp on this very important initiative. Only one thing I would like to mention, that we are willing to work with Aaoifi-Secp, inshallah, in the future as well, to bring together the continuity of this event, inshallah. And we'll, inshallah, you will see more initiatives together in line of the MOU that has been signed, alhamdulillah. I'll take just a very quick brief about Aaoifi's activities and the linkage of Aaoifi and Pakistan, and how they can, flourish together for the benefit of the Islamic finance industry globally and locally. Brother Rizwan, please, next slide. So, about Aaoifi at a glance. Aaoifi is the global standard setting body, along with other standard setting bodies like IFSB, where Aaoifi has been the first one to start with. And can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So Aaoifi actually has been into existence for nearly 30 years. And we have developed 118 plus standards. This does not count the repealed standards, so the actual number may go nearly 140 plus that have been developed in this span of like roughly less than 30 years. We develop standards in the areas of Sharia, accounting, auditing, governance, and ethics, and provide them as a like sort of a combination of standards in different areas, complementing each other. So Sharia is like the backbone, but we develop standards related to, best of the practices that can be aligned together to bring together a complete package of Islamic finance in line with its letter as well as spirit. Aaoifi has actually, we have more than 230 members, but active members list is roughly 168, I think, as of now, from around 35 plus countries. Some of the most important Islamic financial institutions and the Islamic Development Bank actually founded Aaoifi, and then we have like this large number. And since last year, Islamic is our member as well. In Pakistan, we have SBP, Institute of Chartered Accountants Pakistan, ICAP, and Mizan Bank already being our members. We are working on having more members from Pakistan, and it should be like priority, I would say, for Islamic financial institutions in Pakistan to be more associated with Aaoifi. With regard to our standards, one part is that you develop a standard, but what they say that the taste of the pudding is in its eating. So you cannot have only doing the standard setting work unless you integrate it with other activities. So we have our own capacity building programs. Some of them are being actually run in Pakistan as well, along with our training partners. The capacity building program actually ensures that the standards related activities are done by the right set of HR who are trained, well equipped with the understanding of these principles of Islamic finance, Sharia, and related accounting, auditing, and all the standards. We have work on the advocacy and awareness. These conferences are a part of it. We do some limited sort of advisory and certifications as well. Next, please. Next, please. One thing, next, please. Yeah, Brother Farooq has taken some time, and I have to be be a bit cautious of time. So actually, one thing on which I would like to quickly take some attention from you, and that is about how standardization actually helps the industry locally as well as globally. So if you see the standardization actually takes you for comparability, transparency, reliability, understandability, accountability, and timeliness. All these things you achieve, and how it provides benefits to the different sectors, like as an economy, standardization of, again, when we talk about standardization, it includes standardization on the regulatory side on which our brothers from IFSB are working, and it includes standardization on the products and services coming from our Sharia standards, standardization on accounting, auditing practices, how to report these things properly, the Sharia audit part, the ethical part, which is the spirit of it. So when we talk about standardization, we are talking in the broader aspect, and from that aspect, we believe, and it can be like evidence that it actually provides benefits to the whole industry in different sectors. Like to the whole economy, actually, you have one of the opportunities at attraction of the foreign investment by following the global standards. You have better sorts of resource allocation, increased wealth eventually for the participants. You can have I don't want to discuss each and every point, but I would say that the foreign talent, foreign investment, cross-border transactions, all these things are not possible unless you have a proper standardized structure for transactions and services. For the regulators, I would say the most important part is that we save their time. The standardization saves their time. They are not required to reinvent the wheel. They have better adequate. They can allocate adequate capacity in the market. They can have it. Their own time is saved. They can work more towards the monitoring, supervision, and other activities rather than working more on the pure regulation development. And obviously, the internal capacity at times is not sufficient, and it enhances, particularly when you work with the global standard setters, you actually save time, effort to get the global wisdom that is behind those activities, the global collective wisdom, I would say. The investors have their own benefits. They have more reliability, they can rely in a better way on the entities, on their financial reporting, on the audit report, on the Sharia compliance and all these sectors. But it also has significant benefits to the IFIs themselves. Institutions, they have better governance. Their cost of capital gets lower. They have reduced cost and better cost allocation. They have higher productivity. They have higher, the human resources are better available in case of standardized practices. So these are the benefits that the standardization provides you, but very important point is that the standardization has to be on the right grounds. Applying standards developed for oranges should not be on apples would not work that way. This is a very important point, that the standards are to be suited to the industry that you are talking about. It's not just, okay, we want to do global standards, but if you try to apply Basel standards directly on Islamic finance industry, there are so many different. Same thing applies to IFRS, that they are not meant originally for Islamic finance. So these are the areas where you need to focus. Next slide, please. With regard to Aaoifi's global impact, I would say that obviously the standardization is there. We have worked on regulations. We have worked on a lot of innovative ideas, and we continue working on the innovation. Capacity building I touched upon, that is one of the important initiatives that we are doing. We have around 2,300 plus 800 Aaoifi fellows, like 2,300 CSA fellows and 700 plus nearly 800 fellows for Certified Islamic Professional Accountant Program. So 3,000 plus fellows are available across the globe who have got Aaoifi qualifications, and this number is increasing day by day, and this actually provides a great opportunity to have the right set of human resources as needed. And for sure, we are right now collaborating on all fronts with the regulators, with the industry, with the infrastructure bodies, and with the global and multilateral institutions. Next, please. This is one thing very important I would like to very quickly brief you about, about the global impact that Aaoifi has created. Our standards are adopted in roughly 41, on the Sharia side, 41 regulators in 38 countries have adopted our standards in one or another form. So even in Bahrain, they are part of law, even above the regulations. But there are 17 regulators who have adopted them as standards. There are 8 for partial adoption, including Pakistan Securities Commission as well as SBP. It should go to the full adoption, inshallah, in the times to come. We have countries that have adopted them as guidance. Similarly, on the accounting side, financial accounting standards, we have 47 regulators in 36 countries who have in one or another form adopted or referred to our standards. And for governance side, the number goes to 41 regulators in 41 countries. So alhamdulillah, as of now, we have a very good footprint. Adopting Aaoifi standards actually make you part of this. Pakistan, alhamdulillah, is already part of it. But in some areas, we have adopted partially, and in some areas, we have adopted developed local standards. So it has to be, we suggest that it has to be a global combined, sort of set of standards adopted on a global basis. Next, please. For Aaoifi and Pakistan, I normally always say one thing, that Aaoifi is getting more from Pakistan, and Pakistan is taking less from Aaoifi right now. Alhamdulillah, this conference is a step towards changing this thing. So I'll just refer to one thing in this slide because of limitation of time. That is the Federal Shariat Court judgment. If you read it, you will find that it has dozens of references to Aaoifi standards. And it has worked as a foundation of justification in the eyes of the Honorable Court that having availability of Aaoifi standards and having adopted them partially already make the infrastructure available. This is one of the important points. I would say that this is a, this is a contribution by Aaoifi to the industry for Pakistan already, that this judgment actually refers to Aaoifi. So, and we hope that together we can build upon that. Next slide, please. On a very quick note, I would like to mention, because this is our first joint event like this, so we have 3 members from Pakistan, as I mentioned. All the three are very important institutions: SECP, ICAP, SECP, ICAP, and SBP, and actually it should be 4, Mizan Bank. Aaoifi Board of Trustees have 2 trustees from Pakistan, and we have 1 from Pakistan origin, and Secretary General, me speaking in front of you, I also belong to Pakistan. Our accounting board has 1 ICAP nominee and 2 ICAP members who are nominated by other bodies from within the region. And we have multiple working group members, etc. Our governance and ethics board also has 1 Pakistan nominee and 3 Pakistanis, including ICAP members and Pakistani origin. We have Aaoifi Sharia board. Our chairman is His Eminence Sheikh Taqi Usmani. Allah bless him with long life. He is our chairman of Sharia board. I don't need to go in all of these details, but I would just like to mention that Pakistan and Aaoifi are already very much aligned. The only thing is to take it forward to the next level and bring the changes in the industry that are needed, inshallah, in the light of the Federal Shariat Court judgment, in the light of the Constitution of Pakistan. Thank you very much for being here with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Brother Umar, for doing a great presentation, providing a snapshot of Aaoifi to the audience, and also keeping to your time. As you rightly mentioned, I think there is actually a lot that Pakistan has contributed and is contributing to Aaoifi. I will reiterate once, again, that the Secretary General said, Pakistan has the opportunity. It's only up to Pakistan stakeholders how to capitalize on this, this talent and this human resource and this commitment that's there in Aaoifi to, to assist Pakistan in doing great things related to Islamic finance. So my next speaker is Secretary General of IFSB, my dear friend, Dr. Bello, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Your Excellencies, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, let me express IFSB's and myself sincere appreciation for this invitation to be part of. It is a great pleasure and honor for IFSB to be part of this important inaugural conference. I believe it is also a very, very timely effort and initiative by both the SECP and Aaoifi to have this conference. I believe we are running out of time, so I have to be very, very fast. Otherwise, the audience and my colleagues as panelists will also be very angry with me, so I will try to be very quick. It will be good for the audience to understand the difference between IFSB and Aaoifi. As highlighted by Brother Umar Ansari, while Aaoifi issue Sharia accounting, auditing, governance standards for both Islamic financial institutions as well as the regulators, the IFSB focus on the prudential regulation. We complement the work of Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. We complement the work of International Association of Securities Commission. We complement the work of IAIS by issuing regulatory prudential standards that will enhance the stability and resilience of the global Islamic financial service industry. IFSB's mission is not only to promote the prudential regulation, but also to support members implement these standards and ensure that the global Islamic financial stability is not challenged. Next slide, please. Now, just like IFSB, like Aaoifi, IFSB is a younger sister, but I think senior sister or brother, I can say, to Aaoifi, in the sense that we were established a little bit later than when Aaoifi was established. We started with 9 members, and Pakistan is one of the founding members of the IFSB, and we have started with 9 members in 2003, and now as of today we have 187 members, comprising of 80 regulators, 10 multilateral organizations, including the IMF, the World Bank, the Bank of International Settlements, the United Nations Development Program, the Islamic Development Bank, as well as the Asian Development Bank. They are all members of the IFSB. We have 97 market players as institutions, and these are institutions that are operating in 57 countries. I would like to highlight that the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan is one of the very, very committed members of the IFSB right from inception. This is in addition to the State Bank of Pakistan, who happens to be the IFSB Council member, as one of the founding members of the IFSB, has always extended an unwavering support. For the market players, we have Habib Bank Limited as one of the members of the IFSB, and we work closely with all our members in Pakistan. So for me, the great hospitality of Pakistan that I have enjoyed over the years during my career at IFSB has been associated with the support by these organizations. And now with Aaoifi and SACP for this conference. Next slide, please. The IFSBs, we are focusing on prudential regulation, and we have so far issued 41 standards across all the 3 sectors. 2 standards were cross-sectoral. These standards are conduct of business for Islamic financial institutions, as well as Sharia governance, which we are currently revising jointly with Aaoifi. It's a collaboration project, and we hope that soon the project will be completed and the standard will be issued. For ICM, we have issued so far 6 standards, and for the Islamic banking, we have issued 24 standards, and for the Takaful, we have issued 9 standards. Our approach to standard development is we ensure that the conventional standard issued by these conventional standard setting bodies in a way is not contradicting the Sharia principles. If they are, then we have to issue complementary standards. Now, next slide, please. The IFSB's ongoing work, we still have a number of standards that are in the pipeline, and these standards are related to the Sharia governance, conduct of business in Takaful, corporate governance for banking segments, Sharia liquidity management tools, the macro-prudential tools for banking segments, climate-related financial risks, sustainability in the Islamic capital market, as well as resolution and recovery for the Takaful undertakings. Next slide. Now, my topic is to look at the global trends in the ICM as well as the Takaful, and if time permits, just to shed more light on the non-financial institutions. Please don't compare these figures with what His Excellency, the Honorable Minister, has given, because these are figures that are based on the IFSB FCP database, which is related to our members for institutions that are regulated. Islamic finance industry have Islamic microfinance institutions, have Waqaf, which are not regulated, and that's why the figures may contradict. If you remember this morning, His Excellency highlighted that the global Islamic finance asset is now standing at about $4 trillion US. But this, my figure, $3.6 trillion US is as last year, and is only for the regulated institutions. So I would like to clarify that. So both my figures and that of His Excellency are accurate. Next slide, please. Now, the sectoral analysis. When we are looking at the 3 sectors, you will see that as of 2021, the Islamic banking assets growth is 11.1% year-on-year growth, and then it constitutes 68.7% of the total global industry assets. The Islamic capital market growth is about 11.6, as of 2021, but slightly lower in 2022 due to a number of reasons which I will highlight to you shortly. The capital market still constitutes significant percentage of the total industry's asset, while takaful still remain a very important segment, but with a lower figures in terms of the total assets. Now, Sukuk in particular, which is the key component of the Islamic capital market, have demonstrated its resilience and growth over the years. As of 2021 is 7%, and then it is 11.2% year-on-year growth. We have seen slight decrease or slight lower figures for 2022 due to a number of reasons. We all know that since Q3 of 2021, the inflation soars due to quite a number of reasons: the Russian-Ukraine war, the soaring oil prices has also contributed to the inflation, and that prompted central banks to come up with a lot of measures that makes liquidity some kind of challenge. But that's not the same story across the globe. In some jurisdictions whereby they are oil producing and the oil prices went up, they have more revenue, and then the issuance of the Sukuk is a little bit lower compared to previous years that they have been issuing. But at the same time, if you look at in other jurisdictions, due to the accelerated programs for recovery plan for the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a dramatic increase in terms of the issuances of the capital market instrument. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, if you look at the global Sukuk issuance trend over the last couple of years, from 2004 to 2021, you will see that the Sukuk trend is still in an upward trend, and we are really confident that this is something that is going to continue over the short periods of time. And the Sukuk market will be the next key driver, I think, in terms of the development of the total asset for the Islamic financial service industry. This is based on our IFSB's analysis. Some of these figures are actually part of what we are going to be launching in our stability report very soon. And then I think that's why we try to, I mean, it's a very important platform that we highlight some of this trend. Now, total corporate Sukuk issuance sector by sector, Malaysia still continue to dominate the sector with, in terms of issuances for the sovereign Sukuk. And then we try to look at the other jurisdictions like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, who has been also at the front line for the issuance of Sukuk. We have seen for the State Bank, I mean for Pakistan, since 2017 when they issue the last Sukuk, and then recently the $1 billion Sukuk that was issued for the exchange rates, exchange reserves, I think the foreign exchange reserves, and that was really commendable, and we want to see more of that issuances. Sovereign issuances in terms of domicile, we can see that still sovereign still constitute the highest, and then corporate issuances is also the second next to the sovereign issuances. But of course, the issuances by multilateral institutions like the IDB and the ILM is also a very significant component of the issuances. Now, in terms of the currency-denominated Sukuk, we have seen that yes, local currency Sukuk is actually growing far, because now the Sukuk industry is getting matured, and now there is a lot of appetite for issuing local denominated currency Sukuk. So we have seen this has been growing, and the trend has been very thorough. But as well, the foreign currency Sukuk is due to the number of a slight decrease in terms of the issuances by some jurisdictions, particularly in the oil-rich regions. Next slide, please. Other Sukuk trends has to do with the issuances of Sukuk related to Tier 1, Tier 2 capital. This is Basel III related Sukuk. The issuances we have seen quite a significant increase as well, but is very steady and is a normal, within the normal range. The sectoral division of this related Sukuk is more on the corporate institutions, particularly the banks, who are actually issuing this Sukuk to meet up their regulatory capital requirements. In terms of the sectoral distribution of the global sukuk issuances, when you compare corporates with government issuances, still the government issuances is still in the leading part of the issuances. Now, sustainability sukuk has been gaining momentum over the years. We have seen a rapid growth and commitment in terms of the sustainability sukuk issuances compared to previous year, even compared to 2021. We have seen that, if you can see, we have now about 8.4 billion US dollar related sustainability sukuk that has been issued, and out of which 3.7 billion is actually related to green sukuk. This is based on the data that the Aaoifi-Secp database has been using directly from regulators. Is basically, I can confirm to you, is the most credible source of Islamic capital market data globally. Next slide, please. Now, other segments of the Islamic capital markets includes, of course, the capital market is not only about the sukuk, but we have the equities, we have the assets or funds under management. Islamic assets under management and equities actually have demonstrated a steady growth over the years. In terms of the total assets under asset management for Islamic funds, they grew by only 1%. We are expecting to see a more commitment, a more forward initiatives by both the private sector, particularly the market players, coming to take this particular segments into the next level. When we compare the global bonds issuances as well as the Islamic or Sharia compliant capital market instruments, in terms of the assets under management and equities, you will see that the Islamic Sharia compliance still maintain a greater lead compared to the conventional asset management. Next slide, please. Now, for the takaful trends, the global trend of takaful has also been very steady, I can say, over the years. It's important to highlight that these are the dominant jurisdictions in terms of the takaful. These are still the same three jurisdictions, but we have seen a growth in terms of the increase in terms of the market share for the takaful industry in certain jurisdictions like Brunei, Kuwait, and Malaysia as well. The numbers are a little bit increasing due to the number of initiatives that there have been. So the cumulative average growth rates for the takaful sector is still about 4.8%. And the total industry asset is still negligible, which is 0.8% or about 1% of the total industry asset, which is about 26.2 billion US dollars as of 2021. Now, different factors are driving the growth of the takaful sector. I must highlight some of them. For example, in Pakistan, the contributions to takaful window operator represents about 75.8%, which is very, very great compared to many jurisdictions. And then takaful sector in Pakistan registered a strong yearly growth of 12.5% year-on-year growth as at Q3 of 2022. This is based on our working that we are currently working to issue in our upcoming stability report. General takaful business registered contributions grows by 34%, and which is equivalent to 16.12 billion Pakistani rupees. Over the same period in 2021. Family takaful segments, only a marginal growth of 1.9%, and we hope the regulators, based on the discussion today, will be coming up with a lot of initiatives. And I think with the FSC's judgment and the transformation of the financial system in Pakistan, these figures are going to change in the next 5 years, as we had this morning during the keynote speeches and the remarks by both His Excellency, the chairman of the SECP, also the governor of the State Bank of Pakistan, as well as the minister. Next slide, please. Now, when we are talking about the drivers, I think it's very important that I highlight some of these. What are the key drivers that, based on the assessment from the IFSB in this particular region for the takaful? We look at there is a number of innovations. We commend the effort of the regulators as well as the market players in Pakistan for a wonderful innovation, and this is a key driver for the takaful sector. And we also feel that there is a strong commitment for the Takaful to leverage on technology, and I think this will improve in order to improve their efficiency in terms of customer services, claims processing, and so on. We are also hoping that this innovation will also revolve around leveraging on the technology that is readily available so that the industry will strive further. Definitely, competitiveness is a pressure, is global phenomena, not only here in Pakistan, and we are hoping that the regulators and the market players will have a healthy competition. I think the comments by His Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Finance, for the pricing of the Islamic banking products as well as the Islamic finance asset to be more competitive is something that is worth considering. But at the same time, also, I will use this opportunity to also request our stakeholders to continue to promote Islamic finance value propositions from the economic value perspective, rather than from the just religious-based perspective. And I think this should be our focus. We should be able to demonstrate and convince both Muslim and non-Muslims alike who are interested in Islamic finance from the economic value perspective, because we have what it takes. We have the Islamic principles that are embedded in our financial system that are much, much better than the conventional system in terms of value proposition. So I think this is what we should be able to capitalize these value propositions and argue them from the economic value perspective rather than just from the religious perspective. Low insurance penetration is something that we have to overcome. It's something that is very important. That how do we address this? Because still, if you look at it, I mean, for Pakistan is still significant, but in other jurisdictions, I think there is still a greater challenge in Takaful penetration. Next slide, please. No, previous slide, my last slide, the previous slide. Yes, thank you. Now, as a way forward, when we are looking at the future for the trend for the Takaful industry, we believe it is important to have a more efficient product that will cater for the growing youth population. And the growing youth population is actually, those are individuals with a different kind of matrix in terms of as a customers for Takaful. They are digitally oriented. Everything has to be based on technology. Everything has to be made simple, and you have to argue it very well for them to be able to embrace it. The growing population, particularly in these particular jurisdictions, is very important, and for the youth to be able to be carried along is something that we want an innovation that is maybe centered towards this group of individuals. At the same time, also, we want to see a potential sectoral hybrid products. We want to see Takaful growing alongside banking industry as well as the ICM products. I think this is something that we have discussed last year during the Aaoifi-Secp conference, which I made it during the discussion, is that we want to see the capital market product. Whoever is issuing sukuk, at least there must be an underlying asset or underlying project. It's either asset-based or asset-backed. Are this asset being insured? If they are not insured, I think there is a need for collaboration, which is in line with the remarks by His Excellency His Excellency Mr. Jamil Ahmad, for the capital markets and the regulators to come up to collaborate together. And I think this is something that is very, very important, that we see this collaboration. If a market player or an institution submitted a prospectus or an intent to issue a sukuk, can the regulators come together to ensure that that sukuk is actually, whatever the asset is backed by a Takaful policy? And the subscription for the Takaful will, as part of this instrument or this sukuk, will certainly drive the Takaful industry growth forward. I think this is something that we see as very important. Embracing technological revolution cannot be overemphasized. Expand the market potential to develop climate-related products. We have seen the recent flooding. which is happening around the globe, all over, not only in Pakistan, but we believe that climate-related products from the Takaful, for example, focus-based financing using Takaful, focus-based financing recovery using Takaful, I think is a new initiative and a new product that needs to be implemented. And finally, financial literacy is very, very crucial. Without financial literacy, it will be the financial inclusion agenda will not be achieved, and the trend will not be able to grow. My last slide is about the other financial institutions, which I don't have time to highlight here, but we have recently launched a report, which is the non-bank financial institutions, as well as the 10-year, which is part of the Islamic financial service industry development 10-year framework that was jointly developed between the ISDB and the IFSB, which we launched during the ISDB's annual meetings a few weeks ago. There are dedicated recommendations and an assessment of the non-financial sector and how these non-financial institutions can be brought into the limelight and part of the global financial system. And I encourage you to please download this particular report from the IFSB website and read it. There are a number of recommendations that has been made, and this report was just launched 2 weeks ago, and we hope that it will be beneficial to the global industry. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bello. It's great having, the hawk's view from, the two industry, standard-setting bodies. This is, across the board what's happening in the world. Now we are going to move to the next phase of this panel, where we will be focusing more on 3 key countries. And we start with Malaysia, obviously being known as, the leader in Islamic finance. So may I ask my next speaker, Professor Dr. Asmadi Muhammad Naim, from Sharia Advisory Council of Securities Commission Malaysia, to please come and make your presentation, but please keep it short. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعه وله. Thank you very much to the moderator, Mr. Farooq Raza, respected panelists, His Excellency, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to touch a topic related to innovation and development in non-bank financial sector with some case studies from Malaysia. Next, please, slide. In general, my presentation will touch briefly on Malaysia financial system structure as introduction, followed by the chronological history of the development of the Islamic capital market in Malaysia. After that, I will show you key products of Islamic capital market in Malaysia with few examples. Next, please. As introduction, we can, next please, next slide. As introduction, we can classify Malaysian financial system to 3 main classification. Banking system where Bank Negara Malaysia, the central bank, is regulator. Then non-banking financial intermediaries where Takaful and development institution, among others, are under BNM preview. Other intermediaries fall under Security Commission of Malaysia or other regulatory bodies or ministry. So we have Provident and Pension Fund, we have Tabung Haji or Hajj Fund institution, and etc. Third, financial market consists of money markets and foreign exchange under Bank Negara and capital markets under Security Commission, and we have offshore market under the jurisdictions of Labuan International Offshore Financial Center as regulator. Through the slide, we are able to understand that non-banking sector consists of quite big portions of the financial system. Malaysia went through various phases of Islamizations of financial systems, starting from the creations of Tabung Haji or Hajj Fund institution in 1960s, and then Islamizations of banking sector starting from 1980s. And after that, Islamizations of development institutions and cooperative in early millennium. However, my discussion will concentrate on innovation in Islamic capital market. Next, please. As for chronological development of Islamic capital market in Malaysia, the presentation not merely discussions of the history of the development, but you can see through this chronological history how Islamic capital market in Malaysia grew and how our industry innovated many things to arrive to its maturity. So the development started with the creation of Islamic Capital Market Study Group before 1996. And then after that, the establishment of Sharia Advisory Council of Security Commission in 1996. Later in 1997, the establishment of BIMB Securities Sdn Bhd, the first full-fledged Islamic stockbroking house, followed by the launch of Kuala Lumpur Sharia Index in 1999. Other innovation and development that we can see in 2005, first Islamic window stockbroking house, Aaoifi Islamic Sdn Bhd. In 2007, the launch of FBM Ummah Sharia Index and FBM Hijrah Sharia Index. In 2009, the launch of Bursa Suku Sila, BISAS. In 2012, the launch of FBM Small Cap Sharia Index. In 2014, the launch of SRI Sukuk Framework. In 2016, introduction of tax incentive for SRI Sukuk issuers, and the launch of the world's first end-to-end Sharia investing platform of Bursa Malaysia I. In 2017, the launch of Bond and Sukuk Information Exchange, and the launch of Islamic Fund and Wealth Management Blueprint. And in 2020, the launch of Wakaf Featured Fund Framework for Unlisted Fund. In 2021, the launch of Sharia Screening Assessment Toolkit for Unlisted Micro SMEs or MSMEs, and FTSE for Good Bursa Malaysia Sharia. And in 2022, the launch of guidelines on Islamic capital markets, products and services, the launch of SRI Linked Sukuk Framework, and the launch of Wakaf Featured Fund Framework for Listed Fund. Next, please. Therefore, with innovative ICM products supported by robust and facilitative regulatory framework that have been developed and amended from time to time, we can classify those products under 6 groups. First, fund-related, in which 409 Islamic funds are registered with the Security Commission. 2 qualifying Islamic funds that were issued under ASEAN Collective Investment Scheme, CIS framework, and 4 sukuk issued by ASEAN Green Bond Framework. Second, Wakaf related, where to date there are 6 Wakaf featured funds registered with the SC and floated the world's first Wakaf initial public offering IPO in 2017. Third, SRI related, in which 25 SRI sukuk issued by various Sharia principles, 20 Islamic SRI fund registered. In 2018, BIMB Investment Management Berhad launched the first ESG Sukuk Fund. In 2017, Tadau Energy issued world's first green sukuk, and in 2015, Khazanah issued first social sukuk in Malaysia. Fourth, index-related, with the creation of 5 indices. Fifth, market-related, when SC introduced new market, lead market for small-cap companies, and develop Sharia screening assessment on securities listed in lead markets. 6, fintech related, where SC recognized 9 registered crowdfunding platform operators that offer Sharia compliance services, and introduce of second market of ECF and P2P financing platform, and approve 1 registered digital asset manager that offers Sharia compliance services. Next, please. The following slide detail out few products related to above 6 classifications of product. As you can see, starting from 2021, there are 6 launch Wakaf featured fund issued by various reputable fund managers. The main features of the fund is portions of its return will be donated to predetermined Wakaf project. Next, Lakin Central Property can be considered the first Wakaf initial public offering, where the Wakif subscriber will donate their shares to 1 corp. The share will be allotted to the Wakif. However, no certificate nor share will be issued to the Wakif. Finally, I present to you new product from Bursa Malaysia, and it can be considered as end-to-end Sharia compliant gold investment product that is fully backed by physical gold and could be electronically traded on the BGD platform. Among the features, next please, next slide. Among the features of Bursa Gold Dinar Market forces determine price through bid and ask processes, transfer of gold and cash on real-time basis, fees and charges in using the platform by Bursa, and determination of subject matter by auditor and trustee. I think hopefully this short presentation is able to share our innovation of non-banking sector in Malaysia, especially its Islamic capital market. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih. Thank you. Very interesting, very innovative. Indeed, Malaysia is leader for the reasons that we can see. A lot of hard work and a lot of innovation as well. And hence, this is one of the lessons I think that we can take away today. Moving on to the next country, our beloved Turkey, another country with great Islamic finance potential. Some unlocked, some yet to be. But let's hear from my friend, Guzhan Gulai, Executive Vice President from Bursa Malaysia, Bursa Istanbul, sorry.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear Excellency, honored guests, and dear colleagues, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank all of you just giving us that chance to be with you today. Although we didn't sleep last night because we were traveling, we are very happy to be here and try to just make a contribution to your conference as much as we can. And I will just try to be as short as possible. And you might just ask any questions that you like in the coffee breaks or the lunch to us. Well, next please. Just a few words about each slide. As you know, Turkey has a long history about the capital markets, and this year we are celebrating as Borsa Istanbul 150th year of our exchange, which was officially, thank you very much, which was officially has been established in 1873. And so, as you know, we have a large and long history about the financial markets. So we have like 30.84 million total number of investors, which as my colleague and dear friend just mentioned, a huge capacity of about the financial markets. So we are trying to encourage our investors on the Islamic finance also with the ones that we are trying to invent in the markets. So next, please. So as you know, there is a large room to growth for the for Turkey. So we are trying to have more and more about the Islamic finance. Next, please. So I can just give you some figures about or some incentives about our Borsa Istanbul. As I said, a long history and also as the listing and trading international standards and international Islamic standards are trying to be invented and invested into our markets. Next, please. I will just give you a few numbers about the number of companies with the equity IPOs. Last 2 years or 3 years, including 2021, 22, and 23, we have more than 100 IPOs so far. Debt securities is this year, for example, is 546 billion Turkish liras. Average traded volume is huge in billion Turkish liras, is like 104 billion Turkish liras daily. Number of companies is around 500, and the number of investor holdings equities million people is 4.5. So coming to the products available at Borsa Istanbul, next please. I can just tell you a few words about the BIST participation index, indices. Well, we had just started to calculate the BIST participation index recently with 100, 50, and 30 shares. And so we would just give the much more incentive for the sensitive investors about the Islamic rules and regulations. So that Islamic, with the Islamic rules, we do have the sustainability at all, but just to have a sustainability index for the participation, we also started to calculate that. And also we just selected the companies that giving dividends, sharing dividends regularly on the yearly basis, so that the people who want to continuous dividend might have invest to the companies that are also in the participant dividend index. So next please. Coming to the sukuk and green sukuk issues, well, as you can see from the graphics, we have around 40 billion Turkish liras worth sukuk issues, and thanks to our capital market boards of Turkey, who just issued the first green lease certificate lately, and it was like they just helped to have that issue. It was 50 million Turkish liras. It was 6 months maturity, and it was based on International Capital Markets Association's green bond principles also. So we were able to connect the principles of the Islamic rules and the ICMA's green bond principles, which we think that will just have an acceptance from the London or from the European markets also. So I think this is also a good progress for the Turkish issues. And I can just talk about some real estate certificate project, which has been a very successful one in the last years. But unfortunately, we couldn't just have another one, because it should be a huge project for a exchange, which we just talk about millions of investors. Because if you would just have a small one, then it might just have a unexpected price movements, just because of the huge demand for the shares. So we are expecting our companies to have huge projects, maybe some international ones, to have the participation of the real estate certificates, which we think that is in line with the musharaka. So it would just be a good and huge another opportunity for our investors. And also we have some ETFs which are traded in the exchange. These are the QNB Finance Banks and Ziraat Banks ETFs. They have huge volumes, as you can see, 7.5 billion with the assets under management. And we always encourage our banks and our companies to invest more in the participation ETFs. And also, as I can just tell you, that there are some committed transaction markets for the money market, for the participation banks, and also some real estate investment trusts that are also traded in the exchange. And as you all know, Turkey is one of the gold centers that are accepted by the OECD and LBMA. And as you know, the Istanbul Gold Exchange has been the first spot gold exchange in the world and has been merged with Istanbul Stock Exchange in 2013. And now we are accepted as one of the 8 bullion centers or gold centers in the world. So we are giving that opportunity for our investors to buy spot gold or other precious metals from our exchange. And also, we have implemented 2 years ago with my team while I was in the head of the precious metals and diamonds market. So we implemented the OECD responsible supply chain rules, which are accepted in the whole world. And now the gold that are going to be bought from our markets are also going to be responsibly supplied ones, which mostly also in line with our principles of Islam. And also we have huge trading volumes, as you can see from the graph. And finally, I can just tell you that Borsa Istanbul also invests in the technology side, which our ministry has just mentioned this morning. And it is very important to have the platforms that we have to give for our investors and supply, as well as the instruments. You have to have the technological opportunities for your investors. So Borsa Istanbul has invested into technological infrastructure since 2013, and between 2013 and 18, we have just have acquired the with the codes of an international program, which we have now like 200 IT personnel who are very specialized on that special program. And tomorrow maybe we would just have some negotiations with our colleagues from Pakistan to share it with you, because we believe that technology is one of the key points for having more and more investors and products in the market. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you, Brother Guzhan. Just for clarity, you may have seen on the charts participation funds. So those who may not know, in Turkey, Islamic finance is called participation finance, or in Turkish language called katılım finance. So just for clarity, when you say participation related to Turkey, it's always meaning Islamic. So participation funds means Islamic funds, so I hope it will help everyone. Turkey being, a member of the G20 group, the 20 largest economies in the world, and among the only 3 Muslim countries that actually are part of this group, Borsa Istanbul is probably one of the most dynamic, if not the most dynamic, I think, bourses and exchanges in the OIC and the Muslim world. Thank you, and we move on to the last speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ali Latif, President ICAP. I understand that you do not have, any slides, which I believe will be actually very helpful in the limited time that we have. But I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. So let's start with if you can please describe to us the benefits of adopting Islamic accounting standards in Pakistan.
Okay, thank you so much. And the reason I don't have slides was because I was told that I'll be the last in line. I said we've got so much eminent scholars, so I can't bring any slide which has not been already talked about. So I thought that'll be appropriate to go with the questions. With regard to that question, I think I'll answer it, I won't say in two parts, I'll answer it in two ways. When you talk about the financial reporting, you understand that it is always good to have a common language throughout the world, because when we talk about financial reporting, it has to have the basic element of comparability, transparency. So that is the reason international financial reporting standards are there and we all follow them. With regard to, especially when you talk about Pakistan, Islamic-Secp is already there, State Bank is there, they have already formed a working group after the Sharia court judgment. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan also has an accounting standard board having representation from all those shareholders. When you talk about adopting Islamic accounting standards in Pakistan, no doubt it has got immense benefit, because just as was discussed before by Umar Saab as well, that is adopted in more than 40 countries, either fully or partially. And similarly, when you talk about having Islamic accounting standards in Pakistan, one of the main benefit is going to be, it is because these accounting standards and the Sharia standards are both by Aaoifi, and they help you reduce the risk of the non-compliances and the regulatory penalties that can happen. Similarly, it will be given more access to the Islamic finance. So these are the benefits there. And now when I was talking about the other thing, and which I normally do, and that's why I'm always advised by my own institute to go for a disclaimer that you always have to say these are your personal views and not that of the institute. This is not the time to talk about benefits or not. We are not living in Pakistan. We are actually living in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. If you have to follow something that Islam says, you don't go ahead and start thinking the benefits. The reason why we are here is because none of us wants to shake the existing system, because no one knows the ripple effects it can produce. You are sitting in this, the country is at stake, you are sitting in a huge position, the institute is there, so nobody wants to jeopardize the existing system. Now this is the something, we all heads of various institutions are there, we public are there. When you talk logically about something, this is the faith that we are talking about. I'm not that much of an Islamic guy, you can see from the way my hair is, but the idea is, but I do feel that I have the clarity that is required. Why I want to push you right now, and I want to ask you to look into your own conscience for this moment. When you talk about logically, I don't see any reason why two goats are sacrificed and one has the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it and one without. I doubt the meat would taste differently. But why we do it, this is our religion, we are Muslims, we have to do it. We should stop debating on the benefits and just go ahead with it. Anything we do, we use the words, when I also sit in other organizations, we use, okay, we are encouraged to use Aaoifi standards. You don't encourage people to stop at a red light, you tell them you're not supposed to do it. But how, keeping in view, I request everybody of these participants to go back to your organizations, keeping in view the encouragement, what we can do right at the moment is actually enable the State Bank, the Islamic-Secp, and my own institute, and we should actually force all, especially Islamic banks and other banks, to go ahead with parallel reporting with Aaoifi standards. So they have a special accounting standards done for the IFRS, and similarly they must have that for Aaoifi as well. Why? Because if they are selling out sukuks like we discussed, at least the person who's Sharia compliant, he can look at the balance sheet from a Sharia angle. He wants to invest in school, for him IFR is fine, he can give it to his CFOs, that is fine. But right now the benefit should not be discussed, it should, the implementation should be discussed. And if we don't want to go ahead and touch the system right now, we should actually make rules that they should be bound to follow Aaoifi standards with a parallel set of accounts there, with a parallel annual report based on Aaoifi standards. This is, I think, we should do, and I think we should not be hypocrite in front of God. With the world, I think somehow I give the lever to myself, because we are going to answer for it. These laws need to be made. We should not stop saying that they should be encouraged. Forget about the benefit. It is our duty that it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate what you have said, but I think sometimes, well, we have the rationale, and I think that's the strongest rationale when this is a command from Allah, when this is clearly mentioned in the Quran and the Hadith, when this is part of the constitution, then it has to be the case. However, in today's world, the economic factors are still important. Of course, they will be still driven by the same ideology. But practically speaking, do you think that there will be any impact, any positive impact on Pakistan's economy, by adopting these standards?
I think the impact would be there, especially considering those, as you know, FDI is very important for Pakistan. And I think by adopting the standards, we would be getting a lot of life easier for the FDIs flowing in from Bahrain, Qatar, all those countries who have got Aaoifi standards there, and they'll definitely make the language easier for them. Apart from that, those people who want to invest those once you're doing it through the Aaoifi standards, I think they feel that it'll be promoting much more ethical practices as such, and then it will going to enhance our international recognition as such. So the benefits are immense. But to keep things on a lighter note, once we don't do it, we go ahead and say, oh no, one of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's best countries, Saudi Arabia, we say, okay, they have not followed it. Malaysia is not following it. So we don't follow them even on the moon sighting, but we like to follow them on that. They have not adopted. So these are the reason excuses we should done away with. And we understand what the economy has to go through, and nobody wants to ripple effect. That's why we are saying there should be an additional annual report, additional set of books on Aaoifi standards. Don't touch the economy right now, because if you're not afraid of it, just have those in place. So there are two sets. Somebody from, let's just say, mashallah, Mizan Bank wants to do it. They should have two annual reports, one on the Aaoifi standards, audited by the under standards, auditing standards, these ethics, everything, and then they could have an IFRS. Let that choice be given to all those people who want to invest in Islamic products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, being mindful of the time, I'm going to just ask one question to the both Secretaries Generals of Aaoifi and IFSB. This is a common question to both of you, and then we will open the floor for the audience. So just in 1 minute each, please, if you can list 3 top things that you would recommend to SECP and to the stakeholders of Pakistan Islamic finance industry to help develop and accelerate the development and growth of Islamic capital markets in Pakistan. So why I'm asking you this question, I'm putting you in the spotlight because you have what I say a hawk's view, where you are seeing everything happening in the industry, and you have a lot of information coming from other parts of the world. So what works best is something that may be helpful to the audience, please. So maybe we can start with Brother Omar. And you can take a little bit more time because I deprived you of your time in the beginning.
No, thank you very much. Actually, no, it's it's okay. So, Brother Billu can take more time. Still, I would just mention 3 things very quickly. First thing I would say, crowdfunding and digital sukuk. Obviously, both will work eventually on the same model, but in a different way. So first thing, I believe it is something that can actually have retail investments in the small and medium to large corporates. So first thing I would suggest is Islamic crowdfunding and digital sukuk. Both, if you go in detail, both actually work in the same model. The second thing that I would say is the government retail sukuk. The government retail sukuk can be routed through the stock exchange. They can be routed directly through the IPS programs of the banks. They can be routed through different models. But I would suggest that government retail sukuk are very important. And as Honorable Finance Minister was mentioning about the rate, the point is if you go for retail, you manage the rate. If you go to the wholesale, to the banks, and all the banks sitting together, they will bring you to your rate. Brother Abdurrahman Waraj can understand it very well. I think he was heading the debt office of Government of Pakistan, so he understands my point. So finding a way for that is very important. And the third very important thing I would say is actually SMEF, small, medium, and enterprises, as well as micro. So micro, small, medium. Now in the micro, I would add one, small and medium, I would add only one more thing, that considering the global food security challenges and considering the fact that internationally the prices have gone up, so agri sector has become more feasible. So SMEF, but considering more focus on the agri side, because now agri is more feasible and globally the challenge of food security is there. So these are the three, I would say, my suggestions. These are the focal areas for SECP as well as for SBP.
Umar? Dr. Bello.
Thank you very much. I think first of all, these are just, in response to your question, but I must commend the efforts that has been done so far. A lot has been done by both the governments, the regulators, and the market players in Pakistan. But I think what is more important is, I think the first thing that is more important is this collaboration has to be solidified. There must be a strong collaboration between the regulators among themselves. That's for the ICM, for banking, as well as for the Takaful. So this collaboration is very, very important. Regional collaboration is important. Collaboration in whatever form, I think this is something that is very important. We can see even we are taking a benefit of collaboration between an international institution like Aaoifi and SECP, and we are benefiting from that. So I think this is something that need to be, accelerated and solidified. International integration in all structures, particularly the product and services, is a key for you to attract FDIs, for you to attract stability, excess liquidity, tap into excess liquidity in other jurisdictions. So I think the implementation of standards of IOP and perhaps IFSB and other standard certain bodies for the Islamic financial institution is a key. I cannot agree more with what Brother Muhammad has said. It has a great benefit, and this is part of the international integration from that perspective. Secondly, I think private sector engagement. No matter what the government will do, no matter what the regulators will do, sound framework, robust infrastructure, facilities, incentives given to if the private sector were not engaged, I think then there will be a lot of great loopholes, and then the system will not be able to realize what is expected. So I believe this is something we have reached a stage whereby the private sector will have to be given the opportunity to take a lead in certain areas, but at the same time should not be allowed to exploit and maybe take everything to their own benefit. But they should be the ones to promote Islamic finance forward based on their understanding and belief of the system, so that at least in consideration of the Islamic precepts and principles. And then lastly, of course, capacity building and financial literacy. I will emphasize this because the capacity building is not only for the market players, but the capacity building at the regulator level. We all know that the market players are 7 steps ahead than the regulators. That's why, IOP was first before IFSB, and then we coming as regulators, we have to complement and check whatever that is being issued. So the regulators need to build the right capacity to be able to add value to the financial system. Whatever the FSC judgment, the FSC judgment is made very, very clear, and that's the future, and that's something that the regulators need to come up with, build their own capacity and ensure that everything is in place. And I must say that the 6 working, if you permit, because he said I should talk a little bit. So, the initiative by the government to have these 5 working groups and committees to be able to support the transformation, I think this will also be further accelerated, whereby we have some specific sector consultants that will be able to support this kind of initiatives, because everything will not be done by the government. Based on our understanding, IFS will have this global umbrella. We look at practices in other jurisdictions, and that's why we are sharing our views in this way. And then finally, and my last point is infrastructure is a key. There must be a robust infrastructure for liquidity management. We have seen what just happened over the weekend for the First Republic Bank. Recently, after the SVB Bank, now JP Morgan is taking over First Republic Bank in the US, and it's all issue of liquidity. So I think liquidity management cannot be overemphasized, and then hybrid products that embedding security for the products and also the assets by embedding Takapul is something that we have to look at holistically. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bello. Both gentlemen, I think, have provided very comprehensive and very, informative, direction. Hopefully, inshallah, that will help, the SECP and all the stakeholders. I'll throw my 2 pence worth as well. Having advised, alhamdulillah, dozens of governments around the world, I will say that 3 things are key. First and the foremost is probably awareness. Somehow you need to, address the awareness issue. I belong to this country. I come here frequently. Every time I come here, people are still asking me, Brother Farooq, is it really halal? Is it really Islamic? So they don't understand, and sometimes they don't trust as well. So we need to create this awareness. And I remember doing a workshop in one of the conferences in Lahore a few years ago, and that workshop I coined this term, awareness being the Achilles heel for Islamic finance industry, right? So let's not, this Achilles heel kill the industry or kill the growth of or prevent the growth of this industry. So let's address, this issue of awareness. And today, by leveraging technology, I think this has become much easier than it used to be before, right? So this is the first thing. The second thing is enabling environment. And that will include 2 things, a supporting regulation and an infrastructure, right? That will help, bringing those things together. And this is what we have tried to do, the project that I mentioned earlier, where Asian Development Bank, produced this report. We did actually for Asian Development Bank by IFAS. And that is providing the digital, framework or the fintech framework for the SECP, where we hope, inshallah, that once this enabling environment is created by the infrastructure that we have proposed and by the the regulatory environment that we have also proposed to create, that will help accelerate the process, that will help increase innovation, and that will help increase the adoption as well, inshallah. So we hope, with that, we can move to the final stage, and this is maybe having a couple of questions from the audience as well. So now I open the floor. Please ask your question, introduce yourself briefly, and keep your question short, please. Thank you. We are already quite late. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Dr. Fawzia Mubari from Namal University.
Please keep it close.
Is it clear? Is it clear? Is it audible?
No.
Is it audible? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Dr. Fawzia Mubari from Namal University, Accounting and Finance Department. I have a question that Aaoifi with 17 Islamic banks introduced Islamic interbank rate in 2011. And then in 2016, it became dormant. And in 2021, LIBOR phased out. It was a good opportunity for the Islamic banks, along with Aaoifi, to revive Islamic interbank that was offered, interbank rate that was offered in 2011 and became dormant in 2016. So the basic problem that is being faced by the Islamic financial institutions and the governing framework of Aaoifi worldwide is the basic debate that why we are keeping the benchmark, the interest rate as LIBOR, that was in 2021, now are the alternate reference rates. So why don't we introduce our Islamic interbank rate so that we, as the Islamic instruments, could be rated on our index rather than being indexed on the interest rate that is being worldwide dominated by the Western world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very pertinent question. Brother Umar.
Thank you very much for raising an question. And first, I would say that you identified, the right point at the right time. Actually, we also identified it at the right time, alhamdulillah. Aaoifi has been working hard on this area. Thanks to our brothers from IFSB, they are also part of the project. IIFM, International Islamic Financial Market, is also part of the project. Actually, the work we are doing on this area for more than 5 years now. There was a roundtable by CBB Waqf Fund, and we started working together since that time. So what we are doing, first, we are collaborating with other infrastructure bodies on what is actually right now happening, like transition part. So we are working on that. But the most important part, that coming up with an own Sharia-compliant benchmark rate, I'm not sure, but you should keep an eye on Aaoifi's website all the time, and you should be part of our mailing list. You should be happy to know that we recently have issued an exposure draft on core principles of Sharia-compliant benchmark rates. This is the first part of the project. So we have developed the core principles and got them reviewed by our Sharia committee and issued them as exposure draft to get public comments with regard to how a Sharia-compliant benchmark rate or multiple benchmark rates which are based on Sharia can be established according to different principles and remaining Sharia-compliant. That is the first part. The second part is selection of the right models. And actually, we have already worked on that part significantly as well. So we have shortlisted some of the possible models because there was a lot of research in this in last 20, 30 years by scholars, but no practical working was done. So right now, the second phase is also complete. And the third phase, right now, we are planning now to start testing those models and developing the software engines for those models. Brother GM Abbasi is sitting here. He may recall that we had a call some time back. Right now, we are coordinating with different regulators around the globe because we need to do the testing in collaboration with the relevant regulators. So we need to see how a benchmark rate can work in different markets. The thing that you are talking about is a gigantic task. I can tell you it's a huge task. So although we have reached this far, but it may take still a bit of time. But yes, alhamdulillah, we are working on it, and we hope that Pakistan, particularly considering the FSC judgment, that the whole economy needs to be moved to riba-free. So Pakistan should be one of the test cases. We are talking to other regulators as well that who want to test with us on a dual banking system as well as the standalone Islamic banking system only. But we are working on this. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to explain what we are doing and to request the regulators here that we need to work together to move to the next phase by doing some testing on the models that are selected to come up with something that is really workable. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Umar. Next question, please. Yes, Vadai sir.
Sir, I have a series of questions, if you'll allow that. The first question is regarding any potential or actual conflicts between the Aaoifi standards and the conventional accounting standards. And if a regulator wants its regulatees to comply with both sets of standards, how practical is that, and what is the best way to do that? What could be the policy to achieve that? Should it require two separate sets of financial statements, or a single set can comply with both? And how practical or cost effective is it for the regulators to comply?
Thank you very much, sir. An excellent question. I'll try to answer in few sentences. Also, it can take 2 days to explain. But in the few sentences, I would say the Aaoifi's accounting standard setting strategy is that we want to align with IFRS as maximum as possible. So there were certain conflicting standards that have been removed or withdrawn. So now we are trying to align. Now, what alignment means, under IFRS, even when you go to the framework, it says that you need to have comparability, but you cannot compare apples with oranges. You cannot say one apple plus one orange becomes 2 apples or 2 oranges. They remain one apple and one orange. So that is where we come to our differences part, that apple and orange are different. Islamic finance is different. If it was not different, it was not needed. So it is different. Now coming quickly to what differences we keep. Only two approaches of differences are there. One, there is a very specific Sharia requirement. Like Sharia says, a established receivable or payable cannot be discounted, so it cannot be discounted. It's equivalent to riba. If Sharia says you cannot combine two contracts in one, we cannot combine those two contracts in one because this is the Sharia requirement. It's not just, nauzubillah, making fool of people by making two contracts. Rather, we believe that both contracts or a contract and promise are separate and are to be accounted for properly. The second thing, so there are a long list about this Sharia part. Then coming to the second part is the business model part. So Islamic finance business model or transaction structure at times is different. It applies to the transaction business model and it applies to the institution business model. In case of Takaful, for example, it applies to the institution business model. So you are the operator and you are managing a fund. It is not like that you are directly doing a risk-taking business. So these insurance and Islamic insurance, that's Takaful, are different businesses with different business models. So you need to take care of it. Similarly, there is a transaction of ijara. Your transaction structure is different from the conventional finance lease structure. So you need to account for that difference. You have investment account holders who share profit and loss with you, PLS depositors. So that is a different business model. You need to take care of it. So our standards are now significantly aligned with IFRS, but we cater to those specific Sharia needs and we cater to those specific business models. Still, yes, there are differences and there will be differences. One quick comment on the dual reporting. I believe dual reporting can be a possibility, but ideal, it might not be dual reporting. A lot of institutions may have a point on that. But the point is something is better than nothing. So at least you need to take a step forward. I believe Brother Ali Latif has identified that at times, if a decision is difficult, so at least you need to move in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I have been told by the organizers that we need to, draw this session to a close. I understand and I appreciate that there are a lot of things that we need to discuss, but this is why, these discussions will continue offline as well. So please feel free to approach, the eminent speakers and, discuss with them offline. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Dear respected panelists, it has been a wonderful session where we, I think, heard a lot of global developments from an infrastructure body perspective, as well as developments in Turkey, Malaysia, and a perspective from an accounting professional. May I request His Excellency, the Chairman of Securities and Exchange Commission, to please join us on the stage to present a token of appreciation to all our speakers here. May I request speakers to stay with us, please? May I request Mr. Farooq Raza to please receive a token of appreciation from His Excellency, Mr. Aaoifi-Secp. There's also, from Mr. Farooq Raza. There's also a special present from Al Mizan Investments as well for all our speakers of this panel. The next is to be presented to Mr. Umar Mustafa Ansari, the Secretary General of Aaoifi. Can I have a round of applause? We are moving towards lunch, inshallah. The next to be presented to Dr. Bello Lawal Danbata, Secretary General of Islamic Financial Services Board, Malaysia. The next to be presented to Professor Dr. Asmadi Muhammad Naeem, Member Sharia Advisory Council, Securities Commission, Malaysia. And the next to be presented to Mr. Guzan Bey, Executive Vice President at Borsa Istanbul. You can also congratulate him for the elections held yesterday in Turkey. Last but not least, Mr. Muhammad Ali Latif, President of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. Perhaps we can have a group photograph and perhaps we can have a group picture. Ladies and gentlemen, while they take the group photograph, I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. One, yes, we are running slightly behind time. So the lunch has been pushed to 2 p.m. Inshallah, we try and wrap up the next session by that time. It's going to be a marathon effort for that. Second, there are 3 concurrent sessions, first of which will be the breakout session number 1, which will be held in this hall itself. There are 2 other breakout sessions. The session number 2 will be held at Kehkashan number 3, which is actually on the left-hand side as you walk out of this room. And the third panel discussion or the breakout session will be at the Gulmeet room, which is on the first floor. Before any further ado, let me have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Farhanul Haq Usmani, Executive Vice President, Head of Sharia Audit at Mizan Bank. He is also a senior member of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan National Committee for the development of Islamic finance, for the promotion and development of Islamic finance in the country. He will introduce the panelists and the speakers of the next session.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Rizwan. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to the panel, which will be moderated by Mr. Badiuddin Akbar, who is the CEO of Central Depository Company, Pakistan. If I may request Mr. Badi to come up. Then we have Mr. Farrukh H. Khan, who is the CEO of Pakistan Stock Exchange, and he'll be making a presentation on the development of Sharia-compliant stock exchange. Mr. Farrukh H. Khan. Then if I may request Mr. Muhammad Shoaib, who is the CEO of Al-Mizan Investment Management Limited. Inshallah, he'll be making a presentation on Islamic mutual fund industry, past, present, and future. Mr. Shoaib. Then we have Mr. Muhammad Shoaib Ibrahim, who is the Managing Director and CEO of First Habib Mudaraba, and he'll be making a presentation on challenges and opportunities in Mudaraba and non-banking financial institutions. Mr. Shoaib. Then if I may request Mr. Azim Pirani, who's the CEO of Pak Qatar Takaful Pakistan, and inshallah he'll be making a presentation on digital and micro Takaful models to increase Takaful penetration in Pakistan. Mr. Azim Pirani. Then, if I may request Mr. Muhammad Haris Munawar, who is the Executive Vice President and Head of Investment Banking at Bank Islami Pakistan Limited. Mr. Haris will be making a presentation on listing of Sovereign Sukuk, a case of Power Holdings Limited. Mr. Haris. Now, I'll be handing over the most challenging tasks to Mr. Badiuddin, that is to, run this session with the time challenge and we between the lunch and the session. So over to Mr. Badi.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, His Excellencies, local and international participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. And indeed, it's very challenging to hold you during the lunch break, but I'm sure with the help of this August panel, you must have a very insightful information about the Sharia-compliant stock market and the non-banking financial sector. After having such a useful session we had, and definitely from the success story of Malaysia and Turkey, we would achieve our target as well with the help of the regulator and with the collaboration of these countries. And it's really a very encouraging and the motivation for all of us that we can convert from the conventional to the Sharia-compliant product and services. Our session topic is the building roadmap for the transformation of the non-banking financial sector in Pakistan. And for that important segment. We have a very robust and knowledgeable panel we have, and let me introduce a brief profile of each of my worthy panelists. First of all, we have Mr. Farooq Khan, who is the Managing Director and the CEO of the Pakistan Stock Exchange, and by qualification, he is a chartered accountant from England and Wales, and did his bachelor's from the University of Manchester. Mr. Khan has more than 30 years of diversified senior management and board level experience in the financial and the capital market of Pakistan. He is also the former founder, CEO of the BMA Capital Management, one of the largest brokerage houses in the country. And fortunately, he has been involving in a very successful and the largest and one of the largest transactions, merger and acquisition transaction in Pakistan, including, if I'm not wrong, more than 50% of the privatization acquisitions successfully launched, successfully done under the advising of Mr. Farooq Khan. He is also the nominee director of the various companies and the committee of various companies from the PSX nominees. We have another very strong panelist, Mr. Mohammad Shoaib, very famous in the Islamic mutual fund. Mr. Mohammad Shoaib is by qualification as a CFA charter holder and holds an MBA degree from the IB Karachi. Previously, he has also served as the president of the CFA Society Pakistan and also served as the chairman of the Mutual Fund Association of Pakistan. In the recognition of his services, he has been awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the CFA Society in 2019 as well. He is a very prominent and working hard for the promotion of the Islamic mutual funds in the country and heading the largest Islamic fund and probably the largest asset management company in Pakistan as well. And we have Mr. Mohammad Shoaib Ibrahim, who is the CEO of the First Habib Mudarba, more than 2 decades of diversified experience, and is by qualification, he's the MBA from the IB Karachi. And we must have a very strong sector, although it required a lot of things to do, but we'll have his presentation to know how the Mudarba sector can go further in this road. And we have Mr. Azim Pirani, who is the CEO of the Pak Qatar Takaful, the largest Takaful group in Pakistan. He also has his diversified and senior management experience in the field of Takaful insurance. And by qualification, he holds a postgraduate diploma in Islamic banking finance and also have a master's degree in the international business from the University of New Brunswick, Canada. We also have Mr. Mohammad Munawar Haris. He is EVP and Head of Investment Banking in the Bank Islamic Pakistan, a 100% Sharia compliant bank in Pakistan, and a very progressive bank as well. Mr. Haris is by qualification is also in the IBA from his MBA from IBA and the fellow member of the Institute of Cost and Management Accounting in Pakistan. With this robust panel, the topic we have is the building roadmap for the transformation of Pakistan non-banking financial sector. And essentially, there are 4 or 5 elements in this sector, which include Islamic stock market. And although we do not have a 100% Sharia compliant stock exchange, but we have around 50% of the listed securities represent Sharia compliant, which represents more than 60% of the overall market capitalization of the stock market. And apart from that, the PSS is also operating 3 indices, which include the KMI All Share Index, KMI 30 Index, and the MNZPI Mizan Pakistan Index as well. And from the unlisted side, in the central deposit system, we have around 122 unlisted securities, which represents the Islamic commercial papers, Sukuk, Mudarba certificates, and the unit issued by the mutual fund industry. From the Takaful side, although it's a new in the insurance sector, but progressing well and getting popularity. And right now, there's more than around 13% of the total premium of the entire insurance sector is represented from the Takaful side. The Mudarba, the 100% Sharia compliant product, which required a more thing to do, have a very small share in the NBFI market, around 2.5% of the total NBFI industry, which required a lot of things to do. And we have the Sukuk side. I'm sure the Haris is here, will give you more detail about the Sukuk and the way forward for the transformation from the conventional to the Sharia compliant side. With this brief note, without taking too much time, I would like to request our worthy panelist, Mr. Farooq Khan, to present for the Islamic stock market perspective. Mr. Farooq Saab, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum ji. And a lot of people were asking, okay, will we have lunch first? But you know, one of the basic Islamic principles is roza, so we have to have sabr, and we will get lunch, inshallah, after this discussion. So assalamu alaikum, and I would like to acknowledge and thank the SECP and Aaoifi for organizing this conference at a very actually important and pivotal juncture in the development of Islamic finance in Pakistan. Akif Saab, really appreciate your and your team's leadership in hosting this conference and taking the whole discussion forward. The importance and need for such discussion amongst all stakeholders is amply demonstrated by the excellent participation today and presence of the senior-most government functionaries earlier today. I would also like to welcome the honorable international participants who are contributing to the rich discussion here today. And there was much that we had to learn in the previous session from both Malaysia and Istanbul and Turkey. And I'm sure when we look back, Chairman Saab, at this this conference will stand out as an important milestone that set the future path of development of Islamic capital markets. I have about 7-8 minutes, which I'll try and reduce further to cover a complex subject. So I thought it'll just be helpful and most useful to give a snapshot of development so far at PSX, then briefly highlight the opportunities, challenges, and some thoughts on the way forward. Next slide. As we know, Pakistan is a predominantly Muslim country, and the demand for Islamic products by our customers is amply demonstrated by the growth of Islamic banking, as well as Islamic products in the capital markets, as you will see later in the presentation. Pakistan, mashallah, has an enviable geographical location and next door to two of the largest and fastest growing economies, within 2 hours of flying time of the present and future energy sources and funding sources of the world. And from a capital markets perspective, it bridges the time zones from the east to the west. Pakistani Sharia scholars are also playing an important role in the development of Islamic finance globally. Next, please. Although Pakistan has one of the oldest stock markets in Asia, it remains relatively small. Islamic capital market products provide a significant opportunity to develop new investors and grow the capital markets in Pakistan. As the SECP report highlights, there is significant demand from both retail and business segments, i.e. from issuers as well as investors. This will also help to address some of the most major structural issues faced by Pakistan's economy, which include the low savings rate, investment rates, insufficient documentation, and a low tax base, as well as financial inclusion. Hence, development of Islamic finance is important not only for the capital markets, but also for Pakistan's economy. As it was highlighted by the FM earlier, it is also important to note that asset-backed structure of Islamic finance provides greater resilience to the financial system. Next slide, please. I'll go through these quickly, and although equities are inherently aligned with Islamic finance in the sharing of risk and rewards, Pakistan's formal journey in developing Islamic products started in 2008 with the launch of the KMI 30 index, followed by the first Islamic REIT and then the All-Share Index in 2015. Islamic products, next slide please, are equally important for overseas Pakistanis, and we've seen that in the Roshan equity accounts, 40% of the inflows were actually in Sharia-compliant securities. So PSX has been fully cognizant of the needs of our Sharia-conscious investors and issuers. So we have consistently made progress in this field, and this has accelerated in the last 3 years with the launch of the first Islamic ETF, as well as the benchmark rupees 200 billion Pakistan Energy Sukuk, amongst other developments. And the Commissioner Varayat Saab at that time in the debt office played a pivotal role in that. And this was actually the first debt instrument that was also done on the basis of the book building, internationally accepted book building method in Pakistan. The result of all this work, next slide please, is that today, mashallah, as was mentioned earlier, 50% of all listed companies are Sharia compliant, accounting for 67% of our market cap and 70% of our trading value. Islamic ETFs, mutual funds, REITs and Mudarbas, as well as Sukuks are being regularly listed. And there are now 116 Islamic mutual funds, with over 675 billion of AUMs. And this is really important because capital markets need and require an ecosystem within which they can grow and thrive. Next slide, please. And we were honored that all this work has recently been recognized, and PSX has been declared the best Islamic stock exchange for the last 2 years running by the Global Islamic Finance Awards. Next slide. So, much good work has been done, as we've seen, but we are still at the start of the journey. We will continue to work closely with all stakeholders, issuers, investors, brokers, and SECP to fully develop the Islamic capital markets in Pakistan. As I mentioned earlier, this provides a significant opportunity for growth of the capital markets, and it will enable PSX to attract new investors, new sectors like real estate, and capital flows from Muslim countries and Islamic funds globally. As was highlighted by Mr. Gule from Borsa Istanbul, REITs is also an important and strategic growth sector for PSX. And I believe that as we move ahead in this journey, we will also help to improve corporate governance and adherence to global ESG standards, which is another important development that is impacting capital markets and corporations globally. Next slide, please. And no doubt there will be challenges. Many of them have been highlighted in the previous discussions. These include developing alternatives to leverage products and derivatives, ensuring proper tax treatment for all new products, because many of these products are not properly mentioned in tax law, and very importantly, educating investors, issuers, and brokers. There will likely be regulatory and compliance issues that will need to be resolved, and their cost impact will need to be evaluated. And importantly, common understanding will need to be developed among different Islamic jurisprudence schools, as an exchange needs to provide a platform for all investors and issuers locally as well as globally. Next slide, please. We will continue our work in developing new products, both equity and debt, new indices, and creating greater awareness amongst issuers and investors. And we look forward to working with all stakeholders in resolving these challenges in a thoughtful and constructive manner. In particular, we need to come up with robust solutions for the essential requirements of a well-functioning capital market, which includes ample liquidity. Capital markets need to be liquid, deep. It needs leverage products. We need market-making capability and derivative products, amongst others. So we need to develop these not just in the conventional sector, but also, very importantly, in the Islamic segments. Hence, we look forward to working with SECP in developing a capital market plan so that all developments take place in the context of a well-thought-out and long-term plan. Thank you very much.
We have a small announcement to make. All people, all participants are requested to please come inside because lunch will not be served until the session is over. Please.
So this is the toughest session of the conference today. So with this note, I would like to request Mr. Omar Shoaib to give his brief overview of the past, present, and future of the mutual fund industry in Pakistan. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Sheikh Ibrahim and Khalifa Al-Khalifa, Chairman SCP, Commissioners, dignitaries, international dignitaries, media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. As I know, we are constrained by time, so I will keep my presentation very focused, and I will not take more than 5 minutes. But if you want to know more about Islamic mutual funds, we have a stall outside, so during lunch you can go there. After the conference, you can go there and get more knowledge about Islamic funds. Because as we discussed today in the morning as well, the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned that Islamic institutions have to be equitable as well in terms of passing on the returns. So one of the beauty of the mutual fund concept is that whatever return they earn, they charge a small fee and 100% of the return is passed on to the investor, irrespective of you invest 100,000 rupees or you invest 100 billion rupees. So you get the same return. So can we go to the next slide, please, very quickly? I will not go into the details about the Islamic capital markets or Islamic funds globally because the other esteemed speakers have already spoken about it. So let's move forward to the next slide and the slide after that. So yeah, next slide, this one, stop here. So this is the comparison of the Islamic funds and the conventional funds globally. And we have seen that both are growing at a very fast pace. But we'll move on to the next slide, which is introducing Pakistan mutual fund industry. After that, next slide. Okay, so before that, just one more click, please. Yeah, so in terms of category of funds, total market cap, this is again global scenario, total markets by AUMs. Saudi Arabia is the largest market for Islamic funds with 27% market share. Malaysia is 22.3%. Most interestingly, after Iran, which is 22%, UK has a 12% market share in Islamic fund industry. So that gives us an idea how much potential is there and how much we are lagging behind in Pakistan. Our share is only 1.4%. Next slide, please. And then obviously, some of the learned speakers shared the experience about Malaysia, Turkey, etc. I will not go into the details of that because these are some examples of innovative products, which actually highlights that we need to be innovative on our product offering in order to attract the investors. Next slide, please. Yeah, this one. So this shows the success of Islamic funds in Pakistan, growth over the years, and we have taken only last 10 years. If we look at the growth over last 20 years, that's even more phenomenal. But over the last 10 years, the CAGR growth of Islamic funds in Pakistan is about 26.9%. As compared to 11.4% for conventional funds. And I'm very happy to report, as Commissioner Varais have also mentioned, the market share of Islamic funds in the mutual fund industry today is 45%. And I'm very hopeful that in the next 2 to 3 years, it will cross 50%, inshallah. And one of the fundamental reasons for that, as I mentioned, is that you get the same return irrespective of the size of your investment. In terms of types of Sharia-compliant funds in Pakistan, majority of the focus now, because of the high inflation rate, is on money market funds, which are about 60% of the industry. 24% are income funds, and the rest of the categories are much smaller. Next slide, please. In terms of major industry players in Sharia-compliant funds, if you look at this, so Al-Mizan was a trendsetter in 2003 by launching the first Islamic funds. And mashallah, now all the asset management companies in Pakistan are launching Islamic funds. And if you look at the market shares, so Mizan enjoys 40% market share, then Faisal, NBP funds, and there's a complete range of all the asset management companies which are providing Islamic funds. The next slide is about Al-Mizan is a market leader, which was a trendsetter and managing about 300 billion rupees now. And in terms of product offering, if you look at the right, so these are the different types of product offering which are available within the Islamic fund category. So all the possible products which are available in the conventional side, they are also available on the Islamic side as well. Next slide, please. This is my concluding slide. So I'll just share about the opportunities and some suggestions, just last 2 slides. So give me another 2 minutes. Now, what are the opportunities for growth of savings in Pakistan? As we all know, the saving rate in Pakistan is very, very low. It's about 4.5%. And we lost our way about 30 years ago when our saving rate used to be 14, 15%, similar to India and Bangladesh. So obviously, there are 4 or 5 opportunities for growth here. One is unbanked population. Only 16% of the population in the country has a banking account. And the total number of banking accounts is 60 million, and they are not unique accounts. On the other hand, certainly the number of mutual fund investors are less than 500,000. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Gender diversification, again, we look at the saving habits and we look at the data for the mutual fund industry. About 85% of the investors are males and only 15% are females. And 54% of the population is females. So there's a need to increase our outreach and awareness to the female sector of the population. Product innovation is the heart of anything. So if you want to increase more investors, you have to come up with the new products. And mashallah, with the support of Islamic-Secp, recently new types of funds have been launched in Pakistan, which have attracted a lot of interest. Fixed return fund is certainly a new innovation which has raised about 80 to 90 billion rupees in the last 6 months. Digital innovation is very, very important. As we know, we have a population of 220 million as per last census, and As if you look at the current census, it is expected to be about 240 to 250 billion rupees. Now it's a big country with very diversely populated population. We need to reach out to the investors. And the good thing is that digitally, we have a young population, less than 34 years population is 65% of the total population, and these people use mobile phones, so the penetration of mobile phone in the country is over 80%. So we have to digitally attract them, and we are working as, again, SCCP gets the credit for allowing us to launch the paperless accounts or the digital accounts. There are certain hiccups which also need to be removed in future so that more and more digital accounts can be opened and basically the outreach can be further increased. Demographics we already mentioned. Also the current account holders in the bank, there are about 9 trillion rupees in the banks which are in the current accounts, which earn zero rate of profit. And again, that actually is a big hit for the people in a high inflation environment. So there's a need to bring them to the mutual fund industry. Chairman Sahab, with your permission, I would like to highlight 3 or 4 important points, but certainly one of them is saving, and Varai Sahab also mentioned we need to introduce pension reforms in the country. That's very important. There's an undocumented money in the economy which needs to be documented, and mutual funds can be a very good vehicle to bring that money into documentation. One important point which is relevant to both State Bank and the SCCP is the availability of sukuk. As we know that the money market funds are very popular, and the duration, maximum duration they can invest in 6 months. But at the moment, the shortest time frame sukuk which is available in the market is 1 year. So there's a need to work very quickly on introducing 6-month and 3-month sukuk as well, because there's a big opportunity, and I personally feel that easily they can attract about 500 billion to 1 trillion rupees if we are able to launch it soon. Also, the one more request, again, we have the accounting standard bodies, ICAP is here, the quality of disclosures. So when we are investing in Islamic, in securities, as Farooq mentioned about, there are 550 companies listed on the exchange, there's not sufficient information available in the financial statements to do the Sharia screening of each and every company. So there's a need to kind of make this disclosure more robust so that investors and especially the fund managers can easily screen out which companies are Sharia compliant and which are not, so that the investment of universe of the Islamic funds can increase. With these words, I would conclude. As I promised, I will take not more than 5 to 6 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh Saab. Very brief and crisp presentation you have. As I have been asked that we have to directly move to the question answer session for the other worthy panelists we have. And first, I would like to have a question for Mr. Shoaib Ibrahim, then the floor is open for the audience as well. Mr. Shoaib, although the Mudarba sector is the oldest sector in the Sharia side and faced some challenges in the past as well, so in your opinion, what exactly happened in the past and what the way forward you are looking for the Mudarba to get its momentum? You know, it's just only 2.5% of the total NBFI industry. So in your view, what needs to be done, and what are the major roadblockers that you foresee in the development of the Mudarba sector in Pakistan?
Mr. Rahman, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Mudarba sector has a, I think, very rich history in Pakistan market. This sector emerged in early 80s in Pakistan on the recommendation of Islamic Ideology Council. And that was on the recommendations, the Mudarba model was converted into a Sharia compliant entity structures. And the Pakistan, I think, is the only country where this model is practicing as a proper model with the proper regulations. So I think Mudarba has the good background. First Mudarba came in Pakistan market in early 80s. That was the Tumitana Mudarba. And thereafter, there was a good growth of the Mudarba sector in Pakistan. We have seen around 50 plus Mudarba was operating in Pakistan. At present, around 26 Mudarba is operating in Pakistan market with the total asset size of around 64 billion rupees. You rightly said that the size is not promising of the Mudarba, but this sector is gradually enhancing and moving towards. After the decision of the Federal Shariat Court, I think I am very much optimistic that this entity can grow further. And one thing is that very important that with the technological advancement support and digital platform support, the Mudaba sector can do to extend to grow their asset size at larger levels. Recently, we've seen that in the diagnostic report of the SSCP, there was a microfinance company, they extended around 2.5 million loans for the digital support, as a digital lending. I think Mudarba can take this support to engage themselves through the digital platform and with the support of the Islamic fintech as well. Furthermore, recently, my brother Umar Mustafa said that the food security is also one of the issues the world over. There is plenty opportunity available for the Mudarba to engage in agri-based financing as well. And there's a good opportunity in Pakistan market to engage in the agri financing. Our Mudarba Act, which is pending with the Parliament, in this Mudarba Act, there are few things are very promising, which is we are targeting. One is that the private Mudarba, which is Commission has kindly agreed for the private Mudarba. And I think after the approval of this Mudarba Act, revised Mudarba Act, there was a good opportunity for the new entrant in the market for the small levels to come in the Mudarba sectors. So I think there's plenty of opportunity available for the Mudarba sector as well.
For that, for this development of the Mudarba sector is the tax exemption. In your view, if the tax exemption is overdrawn, so what it will be impacted on the growth of the Mudarba sector, or it will be neutral for the tax exemption or not? So in your view, it's going to be any impact on the Mudarba sector for it's allowing the tax exemption?
I think that withdrawal of tax exemption is definitely impacted the Mudarba sectors, and within the sectors, a few Mudarbas is taking exit from the sectors. With this tax withdrawal, I think the main loser is the investors. Mudarba was used to pay distribute the 90% dividend to the shareholders, and within the 26 Mudarba, there are 80,000 plus shareholders are directly benefit with the Sharia compliant profit through the Pakistan Stock Exchange. So they are the loser of the Mudarba investors by the withdrawal of this tax exemption. Yeah, again the impact on the small Mudarbas, but the big size Mudarba, they are managing their profitability. As Habib Mudarba, we had it last year as a tax year, and we paid the dividend at the similar pace what we distributed last year. Other Mudarbas also, they are expanding their asset size, and I think tax may impact, but the growth, they will not impact the growth of the Mudarba.
That's great. And you know, again, we heard about a lot of small Mudarbas are working in the country. And in your view, is there any possibility that we can merge all these small Mudarba into one, and then can it bring the more economy of scale in the Mudarba sector, or this operating in a separate silos, individual small silos, it work as well or not? What is the example you have?
Definitely, you are rightly said that there is a need to merge small Mudarba with each other, because small Mudarba cannot attain the economic scales. At the moment, the financial size is increasing, and having the small size Mudarba is not workable at all, and they cannot penetrate in the Pakistan market as Islamic financial institutions, which I see that there's the biggest growth in the incoming years for the Mudarbas.
Thank you. Any other question for the Mudarba from the audience side? So they're most welcome. Please give it a mic to this gentleman, please.
Assalamu alaikum ji. My question is that Mr. Shoaib, he mentioned the fact that, majority of the females are not involved in the savings. So two things. One is that are you or other Mudarba companies or mutual fund companies looking to create some product which is targeted towards the female? That could be one thing. The second thing is usually the females, they just go in and have this committee system. That's how they do the savings. So is there something where you could come up with the products which could be maybe lower price tag or lower, in terms of the amount of savings which they can invest in? Probably these could be ways of attracting the females to invest.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a very good question. So we are specifically targeting female investors now, and we are trying to create awareness through using different channels, especially social media, because we have seen that, based on the data, we have seen that Instagram and other channels are frequently being used by women in Pakistan now. So we are trying to reach out to them through them, and also we are also focusing on launching specific products for women, which are kind of a NISA kind of product. They are specific funds where only females can invest. So these products are in the pipeline. Inshallah, they will come out very soon. Also, that's a very important question about committees. So we have seen that people save, again, female members of the population save a lot of money through committees, but I think they don't earn anything on that. There's no protection against inflation. So we are coming up with a similar product also, which can be a replica of these committee products, so that, again, it can encourage the saving habits among women. Thank you.
Thank you. Move towards the Azim Pirani Saab for the Takaful side, and we haven't heard about from him. So, Pirani Saab, in your view, what the micro Takaful is a new concept in the Takaful side. So can you enlighten us what exactly the concept is and what are the international examples you have in your mind for the micro Takaful side?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, sorry. Micro takaful, just like the name says, is small ticket takaful products. Either they're standalone and they're sold at a retail level, or they're bundled with other micro products. So for example, Pak Qatar provides the credit cover for a lot of the Islamic lending that is being done by our formal microfinance banks. So that credit cover is basically micro takaful being offered. Similarly, internationally, you see examples of this in Malaysia, where they have small, low-income homes coverage. Similar things are available in Indonesia. Sudan has developed things like these. So basically reaching out to those people who would probably normally not be availing anything related to protection. This is the way to get to them. Similarly, we've also got products that are savings and protection, similar to our other unit-linked products, but again, at a smaller ticket size to try and be priced at a level where the person in the rural areas or farmers or, these people could easily afford it. The whole objective behind Takaful is to provide protection. And unfortunately, in Pakistan and globally as well, the business goes where the money is. And the money usually is in big tickets and big sizes. So we have an issue with financial inclusion. Similarly, we have an issue with Takaful and insurance protection. So micro sort of focuses on those people who would normally not be coming to you, but rather reaches out to them in a way, whether it's in a bundled product or through a microfinance bank or through digital channels, whether it's mobile phones, etc. But basically get to them in a way so that they can avail that same protection that anybody else can get as well.
Great, thank you. And any other regulatory reform you may require for the development of this Takaful, especially for the micro Takaful side, because the regulators are here. If you have anything in your mind that they can hear and you can implement those things as well. Akif Saab is here.
Well, one thing that all my friends, mashallah, at the Islamic, we keep meeting them regularly. And whenever we have an event like this or a conference related to whether it's insurance or Takaful, both, the whole emphasis is always on awareness, awareness, awareness.
Good.
And until we work on that awareness, it's like I was thinking the other day, you know, why don't they distribute insurance like you can get a Kareem on your phone? But the problem is, I need the Kareem, I know I need the Kareem, I'm going to call the Kareem.
Yes.
But I don't feel I need insurance, so why will I bother, no matter how easy it is? And the problem is that when I'm talking to this, mashallah, this educated group of Pakistanis and global financial specialists, I'm preaching to the converted. These are people who are already believers that financial tools need to exist. But the vast majority of our population outside of the urban areas, in fact, why talk outside of urban areas? Even in the urban areas, you just have to pick up an average Pakistani and ask him, do you have insurance on your house? I can guarantee that 95%, I'm trying to be conservative here, 95% would say no.
Yes.
Why? Something as important as your house, you have no protection, but they don't because they don't feel it's important.
Yeah.
So if the regulator can help us with that awareness, with that push, and not at this age, not these 50, 40 plus people, but rather those children in school who are still 5, 6, 7, if they can learn that financial services are important, saving is important, protection is important, there we will be making a difference.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. And move toward the Sukuk side, we are here, very experienced banker we have, the Haris Munawar is there. And Haris, for you, what do you see the future of the Sukuk in Pakistan, as already Farooq Saab and Shoaib talk about the Sukuk, the listing and the Sukuk, for the small ticket size Sukuk and each and everything. So what incentive in your mind that can grow and can push forward more Sukuk listing and more Sukuk issuance from the supply side?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Harik. And first of all, I'd like to say thanks to Islamic and Aaoifi for hosting such an august forum to share our thoughts, and feel humbled to share the stage with Mozam Saab and Shoaib Saab. My initial thought on this, the Sukuk market in Pakistan, I would like to touch base the last 10 years landscape, what we have in terms of listed instruments on the market. Over last 10 years, we have only 56 instruments listed on the stock exchange, debt instruments, and its total size of around 690 billion. And out of which 520 billion were around Sukuk, and heavyweights are 400 billion Pakistan Energy Sukuk 1 and 2 as in the last 2-3 years. So the limited supply side of Sukuk is basically one of the major issue. If we compare it with the other investment classes like bank deposits, mutual funds, the listed Sukuk and supply side of Sukuk is very low. And you can, we have a Jara Sukuk stock of around 3 trillion maybe, and it's hardly 10 to 12% of the total bank borrowing through this T-bills and PIBs. So there is a room for bringing more sovereign Sukuk in the market, quasi-government Sukuk, maybe infrastructure Sukuk, green Sukuk. But for that, I think some asset-light structures or maybe infrastructure Sukuk structures or hybrid structures, and academia, government, and the industry, like the banks or the advised corporate finance houses, they need to work together mutually so that we can improve the supply side of the Sukuk. If coming to the corporate Sukuk side, the demand side, as Shoaib Saab rightly said, the major liquidity influx is in the cash funds or money market funds. And there is a limitation that you can't invest, cash funds cannot invest more than 6 months. So there should be some thought process on that, because there will be a certain level of cash funds that will remain there. So there should be some thought process that 1 year or 2 year or 3 years, certain percentage of the funds may be routed towards the long-term or medium-term Sukuk. So this was my take. And in terms of Bank Islami small contribution towards the listed Sukuk space, we listed our Pakistan's first ADT1 Sukuk, which we branded as Bank Islami Ahad Sukuk back in 2020 on stock exchange, which is priced at Khyber plus 275, giving a healthy returns to the investors. And now as a sequel, we are bringing a second fully listed ADT1 Sukuk. We have done with the pre-IPO, and the IPO is in the process of regulatory approvals. And regarding another thing which we would like to highlight about the Bank Islami, when Energy Sukuk discussion kick-started at the Ministry of Finance, it was our President Sayyid Amir Ali who coined the term Pakistan Energy Sukuk. So that was and we were one of the joint lead arrangers on the PES1 with the participation of 35 billion in that Sukuk. So that's my thought. Thank you so much.
From both gentlemen, Shoaib and Farooq Saab here. What exactly, in your few words, what are the regulatory reforms required for the development of the Sharia compliant stock exchange and for the development of the more share for the Islamic mutual fund from 40% to, say, for example, the 80%? What regulatory reform we may require to start from Farooq Saab for the Sharia compliant stock exchange?
Thank you so much, Buddy. I think, even before regulatory, it is really important for us to understand better what our customer needs are, both from the investor side as well as from the issuer side. And that entails not just listening to them, but also, as was being mentioned, that we educate the market as well and we create awareness. And once we really fully understand the needs, then regulations will be made. Obviously, regulations for some areas will be fairly straightforward, and as you know, a vast majority of our market capitalization is in Sharia compliant securities already at PSX. So those regulations are in place. It will be regulations for leverage products, for derivative products, which will, I believe, be more complex, and where hopefully we can learn from other exchanges in other Islamic countries.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for asking this question. I will give 2 points from the perspective of the asset management companies and 2 points from the perspective of regulators. From the perspective of asset management companies, which is the mutual fund industry, 2 important points to be taken care of is to increase the awareness, and number 2 is actually to increase the reach. That's very important, because without increasing the awareness and the reach, we cannot be successful. From the perspective of the regulators and SECP, mashallah, the entire team is here. Abbasi Saab is representing here, State Bank as well. 2 requests or 2 wish lists. One is obviously coming up with a short-term sukuk. That's very important. The other important thing, which again we are working with the State Bank already very actively, is to induct mutual funds in the RAST program. RAST is a great initiative of State Bank, which will enable all the 60 million account holders in the banks to invest in any mutual funds. So as I said, these 2 initiatives are being worked on, but we need to kind of expedite or speed them up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if any question from the side, because if you want to late your lunch, you are most welcome to have more questions from your side. Otherwise, we can go to wrap up the session. And thank you very much for your kind listening and the patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan, Badiuddin Saab, for keeping it as brief as was possible, I believe, and to all the honorable speakers. Now, with this, if I may request Mr. Abdur Rahman Waraich, Commissioner, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, for presenting the mementos to the honorable speakers. If I may request Mr. Badiuddin Akbar, CEO of Central Depository Company. Then Mr. Farooq S. Khan, CEO of Pakistan Stock Exchange. If I may request Mr. Muhammad Shoaib, CEO of Al Mizan Investment Management Limited. Mr. Muhammad Shoaib Ibrahim, CEO of First Habib Mudaraba. Mr. Azim Iqbal Pirani, CEO of Pak Qatar Takaful. Mr. Haris Munawwar, Executive Vice President, Head of Investment Banking, Bank Islami Pakistan Limited. Haris. If I may request all the honorable speakers to assemble for a group photo. If I may request the Honorable Chairman, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan to please join us for a group photo. Aye, sir. Thank you so very much. Before making announcement or requesting you all to proceed for the lunch, we have an announcement to make. Inshallah, we'll be resuming our sessions at 3 p.m. We'll be having 3 different breakout sessions. Session number 1 will